omnidirectional, which is pretty much what we need from Marco these days in 5 RTS. So, how does it do on 20? Do you have to use a tuner or just an internal tuner in your transceiver for 20-meter performance? Over? Yeah, you're always going to need a tuner with the Delta Loop unless you just stay on a single frequency. The beauty of it, though, is that you can always go up in frequency. All the ham bands are harmonically related, and a tuner can pretty much get you anywhere you want to go above the frequency that the loop is cut for. I mean, you can't go down. Anything below 80 meters would look like a short circuit, so you're not going to get 160 without having several more acres than I've got room for here in 5 RTF. Well, QSL, I've never had one. I don't have a piece of property big enough. Thanks for describing to me. And hope you're enjoying the new place, Jim. Well, this is AA4FL, the Medical Amateur Radio Council Digital Voice Net, which we're starting at the top of the hour. Are there any other early check-ins? If so, go ahead and make your call.
N4PSC. São Paulo.
Good morning, Jerry. N4PSA. Yeah, Chuck was just talking about an 80-meter delta loop. Is that what you have at your house, or was yours 40? Over.
I actually have two loops. I have an 80-meter loop and a 160-meter loop. Unfortunately, on the windstorm about 10 days ago, there was so much whipping of the loop that the wire finally broke after several years. It made it through a couple of hurricanes, but it broke, and I've been trying to put up a support for it. I have it. My delta loop is really triangular shaped, and as a kind of a Rube Goldberg, I wrapped one arm of the loop around a tree and the other arm of the loop around our pool enclosure. And I actually was able to connect with the regular net on Sunday morning. The only thing I find is it's a little bit noisier without the loop being up in the air. Yesterday, I finally succeeded in getting a support line up, and we'll be testing it out once we get it repaired. And if not, if I can't do a repair, I will just change the wiring out. Also, interestingly, with an antenna tuner, I can tune on the 160-meter band, but only from about 1.9 megahertz up. Otherwise, I can tune any of the bands. The only thing I can't really tune well is 6 meters. Back to you, Jay.
Well, thanks for the description, and thanks for joining us this morning. Just got a instant message from Wilson. He's not going to be on the net today. He's at a hotel about an hour from San Polo. So I think, I assumed it was the beach, but maybe not. He just at the hotel. And I see that Steve is with us now, K3SVT. I'm going to go ahead and check you in, Steve. And I've got Jerry checked in. Are there any other stations for early check-in? Of course, we're going to start with that in a moment anyway. Any other stations here? Oh, man. Go ahead, Steve. I'm getting ready to start the net. Go ahead and make a comment. K3FCT, AA4SL. Jerry, I'm curious about. I missed the description of your delta triangular. Maybe after the net chat for a moment or two. Uh, I have 2 acres of property, and I've been thinking about putting up a roof. And would love to learn from your experience. J3 said,
K3SNT. Sure thing, Steve. We'd be happy to describe it to you when the net is over. And for TSC, back to net control AA4FL.
yeah, thank you. Both of you will make sure after the net you get a chance to speak about the developments. This is AA4FL, net control for the Medical Image Radio Council Digital Voice Net. Today, I am broadcasting from Delray Beach in Palm Beach County, Florida, which I will be doing one more week. And then after that, primarily back at the home QTH in North Florida. We meet every Saturday, 1500 UTC here on QuadNet Array. Thank you for the technology from the QuadNet Array. Allows us to transcode and talk to each other in different digital modalities, with being channeled so we can all transmit in our own and receive in the one that matches our equipment. And appreciate that. Remember, in housekeeping, though, it's a complex system of interconnected repeaters and servers. Make sure to pause after key down and before key up. So I'm going to let it drop with that in mind right now. Drop one. Okay, good morning. I see we have Jeff with us, WW9 Alpha. Check in. Jeffrey, thanks for joining us again today. It's good to have you along. It's been a little while. And so far we have 7 check-ins. AA4FL, WA1EXA, N9OML, N5RTF, N4TSC, J3FDT, WW9F. At this time, before we start the regular portion of that, are there any stations that have emergency traffic for the Metafabric Radio Council TVNet? If so, go ahead and make your call. No call heard. Are there any stations that are mobile or on the limited availability today? If so, please let me know now by making your call.
Okay, A4FL in the group, this is Papa Yankee 2, Bravo, Bravo, Quebec. And if you allow me, I would like to be the first today. That 2J 4FL, PY2 BBQ.
Good morning, Hilton. I did get your message on instant message, PYT BBQ. I may have falsely assumed that the city that you're at an hour from San Paulo is it's a beach, but I'll let you go ahead and make your comments now, so we don't hold you up since you're away from your QTH. PY2 BBQ AA4FL, please proceed.
Okay, A4FL and the group, good morning, everybody. This is PY2 BBQ Hilton from São Paulo, Brazil. Now I'm operating from the city called Indaiatuba. It's not in the beach, it's in the countryside, and it's about 1 hour ride from São Paulo. and I'm here today in an event of antique cars, classic cars exposition with some friends. I'm not really a fan of it, but I came with some friends, and we this morning we visited the plant of General Motors here, where they have several tracks for testing new projects. That was really very interesting. Wait one. Okay, I asked you to be the first because I'm right now in the hotel room operating through the local repeater here in Dayatuba. We have a DMR repeater, and it seems to be working fine. And just a brief comment on COVID-19 situation here in Brazil. Well, we have already uh, seen a few cases of the new Omicron uh, COVID patients, not any more severe clinical presentation, but they are here. They have arrived. Those patients came from in a flight from South Africa, and the virus was identified. And well, what we see here is a continuous drop on new cases and deaths. We have an average of 200 deaths daily, which is the same number we had 2 months after the beginning of the pandemic here in Brazil. That was in April in the last year. So there was no increase so far, not what we have seen in Europe, in many countries, in Russia. It's not happening here, so far at least. We don't know what's going to come in the next months, right, Glenn? And last comment is that the vaccination rate is very fine here. We have more than 90% of the adult population fully vaccinated, and most of us are receiving the third shot, and probably it has an effect of this stability and the drop of new cases and deaths. So I'll have to ask you to to free me now because I have my wife here looking at me with staring at me with that look that you probably know. And we are going to the swimming pool here in the hotel right now. Okay, the temperature will peak to 30 degrees today. It's sunny outside, and it's gonna be a great time. So best weekend for you and your families, 73s. Back to you, JA, for FM, PY2 BBQ.
Colton, thank you for stopping by for the report, for the recording that you're doing, even though you're remote today, and enjoy the countryside and the antique cars. Even if that's not your primary interest, it's nice that your wife's with you. I assume there's other couples that you're spending some quality time with. 7-3, we'll let you run and have fun, and we'll talk to you next week. That's the last of our current mobile or short-term check-ins. Before we do regular check-ins, are there any other stations that are short-term today that would like to check in? Go ahead and make your call. VE3, NXT, did you want to check into that? You'll have to be a market member to do so, right? Okay, Bob, we're just getting you dropping here. We're gonna go to regular net check-ins here. This is the Medical Image Radio Council digital voice net. We meet every Saturday at 1500 UTC, and we talk about issues related to healthcare. It doesn't necessarily have to be health professionals. You can be a patient and ask. You can be a Marco member. You can be a community member and be involved in the dialogue. However, if you're a guest and don't choose to be involved in the roundtable discussions, just let net control know when you check in, and we won't call on you. But we'd still like to know that you're there participating. That way we can tailor our conversation to any particular interest you may have. At this time, are there any stations that would like to do a regular check-in address to AA4FL net control? No additional check-ins at this time. Well, let's go ahead to the beginning of the list. Well, I guess I'm the beginning of the list. Things are fairly quiet in Florida. I'm not sure Omicron has been identified yet here. The overall positivity rate was reported today as 2.5%, so pretty low here in Florida. Of course, we're all outside enjoying, just like Chip says in New Orleans, this is the time of year we get out and enjoy the weather. We don't have the cold weather from up north, but we do get a lot of visitors from all over the country, as New Orleans does too. So we'll have to see what happens here as life progresses, since there still is a reservoir of unvaccinated people, particularly young children. And I'll turn it over to WA1EXA to make his presentation. Go ahead.
Hey, WA1EXA. Well, I'm going to be the, I guess, the voice of doom here. Massachusetts is not doing anywhere near as good as any of the two reports, either in Brazil or in Florida. You know, it's getting cold here, so everybody's going inside. And with the holidays, Thanksgiving, and now the holidays coming up, people are congregating again. We have 935,000 confirmed cases in the state, 19,400, almost 500 deaths in the state. In my county, which is the Barnstable County, we have 20,000 cases, these are confirmed cases, and 535 deaths over the past 14 days average. The curve is very definitely going up, and we are looking at, we don't know what, break one. And let's see. One thing I was going to note, and I don't know if anybody else is seeing, wear our masks and we're going to be careful, but we're not going to stop doing things. And I'm wondering if that kind of summarizes what's going on in other parts of the country. So we're kind of looking at that right now. And I think this is going to continue until after the holidays. As far as the new variant, we haven't seen it. As far as I know, it hasn't been confirmed, but you know, it's all around us, so I'm sure we have someplace. And I don't know whether the vaccination rate in the state is like 75% that's fully vaccinated, and which is fairly decent. Of course, now you're still working on. Jay, did you copy me? WA1EXA.
We copied quite a bit of that. You dropped out at a time now. Certainly got through the part where you're talking about the three different types of people. We were pondering
what other people in other parts of the country were doing. I'll let you pick it up from there, Ruby.
Sorry about that. You know, I saw they got it. Yeah, basically that's what we're seeing here. What we expect is to continue, I said, because we're going into the holidays, people are going inside, they're going to parties, and it's probably going to continue until after into February, maybe March. So that's about the gist of it. Back to you.
QSL. Today in online, I assume everybody's privy to public information. I guess it was a Christmas party. Can't remember what state it was. It was Oregon. It was a corporation that had a subsidiary or holding in South Africa, and they already had numerous positives. I think there were 14, 12 or 14, and they expected it to grow to as many as 60 or 120 potential. But I haven't seen anything so far that showed that there was an increased mortality or severe morbidity. So at least the initial reports are symptoms of reinfection, but not the more severe. Were you familiar with that report, Mark? Go ahead.
I have heard. I'm not that familiar with that particular report. I've heard other reports, um, and like I'm supposed to go tonight to a Christmas party with my local ham club, and I don't know. I think I'm gonna just bring the soda I'm supposed to bring and then go home. I'm not quite sure what I'm gonna do at this point. I think a lot of people are in that category. And we are checking people's vaccination records, and of course we mandate masks inside. You can't do that when you're going to have something to eat. So it doesn't look too great up here. Back to you.
Yeah, QSL potential exists, but the reports that seem still say the morbidity and mortality is the unvaccinated pool, even uh, as as far as whether the Omicron exceeds Delta and its transmissibility and its ability to reinfect will be seen in upcoming weeks. But the one other comment that was pertinent that I read, I don't know if it was on the BBC coverage, was initial reports were those that had naturally been infected and recovered from uh, COVID were more susceptible to reinfection than those that have been vaccinated. And I imagine that's probably because a lot of boosters and second doses are out there, whereas someone that was reinfected the first time probably just doesn't have as robust a response timeout. So individuals that think they have natural immunity might want to do a second thought here. But so far, it's not gloom and doom. It's obviously a very pertinent concern and one that's being taken seriously, uh, especially by those that recognize what exponential growth of a virus is or explosion of its infectivity. I think I'm going to go next on the list to N9OML. Howard, go ahead. AA4 net control.
Good morning, A4FL, everybody on the net. N911, about 45 miles northwest of Chicago. Got a few things that I observed, just without any real research, but stumbled upon a news broadcast with a physician, a lady in South Africa, in the country of South Africa, at one of the major medical centers, and her comments were that correct on natural immunity from prior infection does not seem to be as effective as immunity from vaccination. It seemed to be transmissible, highly transmissible, particularly in a younger group. They weren't necessarily seeing more severe disease. And then she acknowledge that the data is way too early to draw any good conclusions. With one. Locally watching the news yesterday, and I didn't get the numbers, just watching local news in the morning, they made reference to Omicron, which that's the right pronunciation. I've heard about 3 versions of it, being present in 3 states. By the midday news, 5 states, and by late night news, 10 states. Understanding that neither population concentration, or density, or area of states is anything from a constant, it was still a very classic kind of initial progression for one day, and speaks poorly to this not becoming widely spread virtually instantly across the country. The last comment I'd have, wait, what? Rockford, Illinois is approximately 45 miles further northwest from Chicago than I am here in the kind of outer suburbs. They were on the news last night. They're out of hospital beds. St. Anthony's Hospital reported no ICU beds, over 108 COVID patients, and no beds available. They're a teaching affiliate of the University of Wisconsin-Madison, interestingly enough, about 90 more miles northwest. So they're in trouble. The other Rexall Memorial is in trouble, and I can't remember the other hospital name. It might be St. Anthony Stillman or something or other. But they're all jammed up, and they are not far from the Chicago area. What that goes for capacity in our area, I don't know. So that's the observations from stuff that I saw. And I know well. I hope everyone's doing well. Back to Net Control.
Thank you for the report, Howard. It's interesting how we hear things similarly from different parts of the country, but a lot of times it's the same sources. I believe the BBC report was probably from that South African doctor. About that timing, certainly, as Mark mentioned, was holiday parties and something that's transmissible because of the exponential growth. And we'll just have to see on the morbidity. But from a practical standpoint, on a public health standpoint, I mean, the impact is obvious. If you had people attending that you weren't sure were all vaccinated, you'd probably be leery about attending an event. So, from a practical standpoint, there's so many ramifications. But let's hope that the initial fear that this could be an escaped mutant, the one that escapes humanity, totally does not come into being. Let me let it drop one. As we discussed last week, we're dealing with a variant that's got a number of mutations that was originated supposedly, no one knows for sure, I don't think it's determined exactly where, that certainly would be a country that more likely had a lower vaccination rate. So it's a connected world, and if you've got transmission, you've got a higher chance of having the mutations as it's going through the wild population. So let's hope that an escape mutant never does develop. I don't know if anybody's ever statistically commented on the probability of that, but certainly you see that in popular culture. But it's nice that we do have officials and entities worldwide that take this threat seriously to protect us and those among us that really don't feel that it's an issue. Next, N5 RTF, Jeff, go ahead.
Well, hello again to Jay and the group. This is N5 RTF. I'll be the voice of optimism this time. We got our first case in Louisiana, unnamed individual who was reportedly traveling within the United States recently. But I also looked up deaths from Omicron, and so far, as of last week,
no one has actually died from this. So Terry's sitting here with me, and we were talking yesterday about maybe this is exactly what we need to build up herd immunity. We need something with high transmissibility, low mortality, low symptomatology, and we were remembering the chicken pox parties that they held when we were kids to get all the kids infected with chicken pox. And we may actually see Omicron parties before this is over. N5RTF.
Yeah, interesting comment there. I hadn't thought about that. But, I guess that people that have previously had the disease to get it again, don't want to get vaccinated. They're going to get sick again and it will act as a natural booster. So, I guess just so, again, the question still is, do we really know enough about the long-term sequela of being infected that it's worth the risk to try to acquire herd immunity in that way rather than vaccination? Please comment over.
No, it'll take years to sort that out, but you would assume that if the symptoms are very mild and the person doesn't have to be hospitalized, that the sequela also would likely be mild. I wonder about some of this long haul stuff if it wasn't people that have been on a vent for days on end under anesthesia. We see cognitive problems with people just having heart surgery. Somebody on a vent for 3 or 4 days may suffer from that rather than the virus itself. N5RTF.
Understood. It will take years to sort it out statistically, I suppose. But nice to know there are those that do that type of work. And again, on the positive side, future potential pandemics or outbreaks of viral diseases will benefit in combating them due to the experience of dealing with this. You just hate to see what may end up being 1 million casualties along the way here in this country, and who knows how many worldwide. Life is a learning experience, though. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, nature prefers the survival of the fittest. So maybe the fittest are the ones that are smart enough to get vaccinated. Maybe that's the definition of the fittest these days. I wouldn't say smart enough, but feel the need to get vaccinated because there's plenty of very intelligent people who choose not to get vaccinated for their own reasons. M4TSC Jerry, go ahead.
Okay, A4FL and 4TS is returning. First of all, I should comment that discovered that when Hilton is on, he causes my radio to cycle every 10 seconds. I can only hear about 1 or 2 words, and then it cycles again. And so I have no idea what he said. And also, I got interrupted with a number of phone calls this morning. So, at the risk of being redundant, let me just make a few comments about the Omicron variation and what may ensue. And I'm speaking somewhat teleologically because I was talking to some friends the other day trying to explain to them why there appears to be increased infectivity but decreased morbidity from this. If you think, if you've ever walked in a wooded area and you pick up some of these burrs that kind of hang on to and attach to your clothing, you notice it has 1 or 2 attachment points. And what's happening with the Omicron is it looks like it's having 30 times the number of attachment points. So that increases its infectivity. But if you speak teleologically, it looks like in all of the viruses we've had in the past, every variation that we've had leads to decreased mortality, maybe increased morbidity, but decreased mortality because the virus wants to live, and if it kills off its host, it doesn't live. So we'll have to await the data going forward, but it looks like that's the direction. Wait one. And the other point that we need to make about what's happening right now is there's a shift in the potential hosts, because of the way we've been attacking the Delta variation. And we've been getting people that are older all the way down to the younger age group, and we have no one under the age of 5 having any kind of protection by vaccine. And it looks like the morbidity is increasing exponentially right now among the under 5, which, as an aside, I should mention that if I could find a daytime nanny for my grandchild, I would be really happy. We live 3 hours away from her, so I would like to be able to protect her from having to go to day school, that kind of thing. And I think it's only prudent until we know more. So anyway, I hope I have not been redundant in the comments that I've made, and that's because I've just been interrupted with phone calls. So if I have, I apologize. Anyway, let me turn it back to you, Jay. AA4FLN4TSE.
N4TSE, you weren't redundant at all. Thank you. For the input took a little bit of a different tack, so we do appreciate that. Adds to the discussion in a very significant manner here, Jerry. It's good to have you on Hilton's off for the rest of the event. So I don't know why the peculiarity occurs, but that's something particular to your radio, to your setup, and unfortunate as it is. But again, he's traveling today, and if he missed his comments, he won't be back on the net. He's heavy in the countryside and not available for the rest of today. Thank you for being here with us. Next on the list, I'm going to go to Steve, K3FCT. This is AA4FL Net Control for the Medical Average Radio Council TV Net. And go ahead, Steve.
Good morning, everyone. Steve in Philadelphia, K3FCT. And the amateur radio node, I am using an analog HT to my clear node, which is transcoding to the ASUS System Fusion to the QuadNet Array XLX307 reflector. Clear node, also, and the main reason I acquired it was for Allstar. Okay, that's enough amateur radio talk from me this morning. Let me reset. Although I should say, by keeping the Clear Node app up on my iPhone, I do get a countdown timer to the 3 minutes when the reflector would be set. As far as COVID-19 goes, the Philadelphia metropolitan area is neither better nor worse than the rest of the world. We are seeing an increase, 12% day over day in the number of cases, 43% increase over the last 2 weeks in the number of cases. Deaths are still trending down once. happens with that. I suspect that, like the rest of the world, Omicron is here, but that the majority of new cases remain Delta variant. There is a front page story in the Saturday New York Times about, I don't remember the moment whether it was Iowa or Nebraska, but their public health survey of samples of 64 positive COVID samples, 6 were typed for Omicron. That was Thursday. So that's my take on the COVID news. Other than the personal, I may have spoken about my interest in live music, and I had concert tickets for several shows in the next 10 days or so, and I am trying to give away the one Singleton ticket that was just me, and I'm trying to resell the pair of them for next Saturday night at the Mavericks at a local house. Let me reset. That was at 2 minutes and 53 seconds. So, obviously, my wife and I have decided that being indoors, even masked, for a couple of hours is a bad choice. At least it is for us. We still plan on travel to Hawaii in early January for a 2-month getaway. But we'll see what happens with the data over the next several weeks. Jay, back to you, AA4FL. This is K3FZT. Thank you, Stephen. You guys stay safe and do what you're comfortable doing. And everyone has to make their own personal decisions on what their comfort zone is and taking risks. And there's nothing wrong with being overly cautious. WW9F, Jeffrey, go ahead. Okay, nothing heard from Jeff right now. Are there any other stations that would like to check into the Marco Digital Voice desk? So go ahead and make your call. M3IM.
Louis Senior, DeForest WI, Chad in Fort Charlotte, Florida. Got no traffic. Thanks for checking me in.
Okay, thank you. W4SWI and N3IM. Keith, let's let you go ahead and take the mic. Go ahead. Also, Mark had previously raised a question about different groups depending on risk tolerance. And I immediately recalled a
column that I had read quite some time ago about risk tolerance among the population, and there seems to be two groups of people: those who worry too much and those who worry too little. And if you think about your own response to situations, to risk, you can pretty much figure out which group you're in. I thought that observation seems to summarize the situation pretty well, and it's applicable to our activities today. Nice to be back on the net once again. WW back to you, Jay.
Being seen, however, the new Omicron variant has been seen in various places in the United States. However, we still have to see what's going to happen with that. Break one. And the reports out of Africa are a little bit disconcerting in the fact that there seems to be some increase in children with the Omicron variant. Up until this variant hit, the Africa area was fairly low in COVID cases. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I'm not sure this variant is as lethal as the original COVID-19, but it does have at least 50 genomic transitions, so this virus seems to be able to mutate rather quickly. However, if the past is any indication, break one, as the viruses mutate, they tend to become less of a problem. So hopefully that's what we're going to be seeing here. However, this is one of the largest genomic variations that's taken place in the virus that we're aware of. This is M3IM, back to the group.
Thank you, Keith, and appreciate the input you had commented about, I think, 3 weeks ago about Africa faring fairly well at the time. I guess you're having some equivalency with being on the cover of Sports Illustrated this Sports Illustrated, Jinx. Hi, but really, seriously, no factor there. Just happened to be that way. But you're not having a problem with the virus. Certainly, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how each individual country on the continent and the different parts of the continent will transpire. But again, looking at this reservoir of potential infection mutation obviously is a concern. I'll take a second list for follow-up comments. Make a call and let me know if you'd like to discuss another topic or something about this one and further. Go ahead and direct your call to AA45 and I'll make a list.
WAWNEXA.
Mark, WA1EXA, go ahead for your additional comment.
WAWNEXA. I have there's this new oral drug. One here, and I guess another one that Merck is coming out with. And I'm hearing a lot of information that they're have a lot of expectation. Of course, until we get it out and we're using it, we won't know for sure. But I was wondering if anybody had better information than I do, which basically says that it's the drug does not attack the spike of the virus, but it actually affects the the inner DNA, and is very similar to the AIDS drugs. Um, just looking for comments. W. When he exit.
Any follow-up answers to address Mark's question? If so, go ahead, I'll make a list. K3FZT. Go ahead, Steve. K3FCT. Take the mic. What Mark was reading from this morning's Saturday's New York Times, an article about the two drugs from Pfizer and Merck. Was pretty much gave that information that the drugs affect the reproductive capacity of the virus and energy use. But no scientific papers read here. It sounds like we're going to have plenty to discuss in the upcoming weeks. 7 days seems like an eternity. So much going on, so many people looking into the subject. 7 days these days seems like a year of progress 50 years ago. So, again, nice to have so many talented people working on the problem. Are there any other individuals that would like to make follow-up comments before we call the net to a close? If so, go ahead and make a call, and I'll make a list. AA Forso.
And then more question.
And no, Howard, go ahead, AA Forso.
I was wondering what weight, strength, confidence, whichever would be the right term, to place in some of the data that we see in the media and reported by public health officials regarding morbidity, mortality, and prevalence by variant of the COVID-19 virus. Does anyone know where this testing is done? Are they submitting samples to the CDC? Is this something that's done as a routine matter, of course, in a physician's office? I actually truly don't know, and it seems to me that they may be stretching beyond their data when they extrapolate like the prevalence of the particular variant in the population that's neither hospitalized nor being autopsied. I'm just curious how they're able to extend that information and report it so confidently. And I'm just curious if anybody knows where that sequencing, I guess, would be installed and who controls that and disseminates the information. And I don't know if that's in control. Thank you.
Okay, Howard, good question. I can only answer secondhand because I just happened to see a news piece from a lab that was doing sequencing, and what they reported, there were 60 labs that are doing sequencing of all the ones that are charged with doing COVID tests. So it must be an arrangement for the CDC, but I don't know the exact details. But I did also hear report that the amount of testing itself is a problem. Apparently, statistically so, that we don't actually have enough of daily testing going on to statistically represent what's going on in the general population. So, any comments on my comments in response to Howard's answer or further clarification? I'll make a list. Go ahead. Comment K3FZT. Go ahead, Steve. K3FCC, AA4FL. I can't add anything to your comment, Jay, or Howard's comment, but I do think the general thrust of Howard's comment merits strong consideration. A specific example. Barely half of the states report in their public health data hospitalizations and deaths by age. They have, and then there are, they all apparently report by vaccination status, but not by vaccinations. About half do not report by vaccination status and age, deaths and hospitalizations. So when we say that there are no children hospitalized or dying, or those under age 5, realize we are saying that on only about half the states. My source for this, again, is the Times, an article by David Leonhardt about 10 days ago now at this point, in which he looked into it and reported on the fact that many states, I think it was over 20, did not report hospitalizations and deaths by age. So statistics are skewed, not just necessarily the Omicron variant. K3F said too. Here's how we'll have to see with time. It's one thing to have statistics that are skewed due to inaccuracy. It's another to have them be affected by a party who would like to have them, the outcome be skewed. So I'm not sure if the question was both from Howard. We'll see over time. We'll keep an eye on it. Keep on discussing it here. Keep it in the forefront of our discussions. Any other comments before I call the next to a close? Go ahead.
WA1EXA.
Go ahead, Mark. WA1EXA. Proceed.
Not to draw this thing out, but the other kind of question mark is the accuracy of the testing. There's a lot of self-testing, and if that's being reported, if that's not being reported, it appears to me, at least from what what I'm seeing up here, and what the reports are from the state, basically saying that the majority of the testing isn't being done by departments of health or hospitals or anything that any agency that was doing that kind of reporting, and a lot of it is being done one-on-one, which question mark is how much of that gets into any kind of a database. And I'm not clear exactly how it works because I have not done that. But just bring that up as another point of, I guess, concern with these statistics.
Any comments to Mark's quandary there or question there? Go ahead. Make a list. AA4FL.
And I don't know.
Proceed, Howard. And I don't know.
Yeah, to be clear, I wasn't questioning any agency, state, local parties, anybody's motive at this point in manipulating data. Rather, how good a snapshot, how good a view do we have using this data to to apply it to the population. For example, the noise level of seasonal sniffles, allergies, people are convinced they have something mild and never seek any type of medical care. We really don't have any way to know unless we have universal testing whether those people are experiencing morbidity without mortality or whatever you want to call it, subacute of clinical requiring hospitalization. And things like that were just totally in my mind. Also, people who go for the drive-through test and decide to be the doc and wind up in the hospital, are they triple reported? Are they screened out? And I don't mean any one particular question, but just in general, what are the standards and how tight is this data? Because we seem to be really wrapped up in it, not us, but the entire country, the entire world. And I just wonder how strong the data is to support decision making and action taking sometimes. And I wish I had the brilliant solution or answer to that, but that's why I brought the question up. And I don't know.
AA4FL on Nextro. Thank you for clarifying. Again, Mark, it's complicated. You know, got so much covered there because you also had accuracy of testing. And as we previously covered on the grand rounds, we're not even talking about the home testing that leads to initial positives where people are aware, but aren't required to report it. Just get in contact with a physician. So it's complicated. I don't know if we have an answer, but I'm sure they're doing the best they can under the circumstances. Good homework for us to think about over the next week. Why doesn't everyone look at articles on the subject? We'll take up the conversation next week. We're just about at the top of the hour here. For 1 hour digital voice net. I'm not trying to be short here, but working on fumes. And I think we had a pretty good comprehensive discussion of the subject matter today. Of course, one good question always begets a few more. So it's the nature of life, and even philosophers try to philosophize, and whatever you're discussing just seems to grow into another area of concern, meaning life is complicated. So as we all realize that we had a conversation about delta loops to take place after the net comes to a close. So for those of you that would like to hear about antennas, we'll go ahead and let that conversation ensue after we call for that. Appreciate the coordinate array and the technical aspects. So yes, to transcode 73. I'll talk to you next week. AA4FL calling the Mark Code Digital Voice Net to a close and returning the coordinate array to regular amateur communication. 73.
N4TSC. This is K3FZT. Still there, Jerry?
Yeah, K3FZT and 14.
Great. So maybe you tell me something about your delta loop. I have about 250 feet of wire up, along with a counterpoise in a terminated end-fed inverted V. Terminated means I have 500 ohm, 500 watt non-inductive resistor at the far end. And so it makes for a very broadband antenna at the loss of about 30% efficiency. And I'm very interested in maybe converting what I have or maybe adding to what I have with a big full wave loop for 160, which is something like 550 feet worth of wire. So please, let me
me know what you accomplished there. K3F said.
Just while I was walking, I was listening to what you were saying. I hope I followed exactly what you're saying. It sounded sort of like what you have is a kind of a beverage antenna setup. What I have here is a couple of loop antennas. 160 meter loop kind of doubles back on itself, and the 80 meter loop is in the clear for the most part. But what I discovered when I started to look at the possibility of putting in a loop is that any kind of a loop arrangement that you make, which is an approximation of a circle, is a loop. And so you can do any kind of variation of that you like. And the limitation, the smallest, is to make it a delta loop, which is a triangle. Oh, wait one. And so what I determined was that the loop itself can be virtually any size. The larger the incorporated area, the more likely it is to work for you. And in my case, what I've done is I've fed the antenna through a low loss coax up into my brain is turning to silly putty at the moment. I ran it through a connector that is a balun, in one case of a 4-to-1 balun, and the other case, I think it's also 4-to-1 balun, but it's designed slightly differently. In any case, when the loop came down, the 80 meter loop, I just took one end of it and wrapped it around the tree. I took the other end and wrapped it around my pool enclosure, and so now it's open-ended, and it's somewhat like the design that you're talking about, although it doesn't have any kind of limitation for a resistor at the end. So I can give you more detail about how I set mine up if you like, but let me make sure that you can still copy me. So back to you, Steve, N4TSC.
Very good, Jerry. I copied all of that. Thank you very much. I'm curious as to how much wire you have up there for your 160 meter loop. That's, I mean, if I'm gone, you know, what's the line if you're gonna go big? So, yeah, if I'm going to put up a loop, I'm going to aim for enough wire to be a full wavelength at 160 meters, which is about 550 feet, something over 500 feet anyway. And I was just curious how much wire you had up on your 160 meter loop. Over.
Yeah, K3XZT, N4TSC. Well, my 160 meter loop is 160 meters in length, and my 80 meter loop is 80 meters in length. You can calculate that and measure it in feet, or you can measure it in meters, and I chose to measure it in meters. So I probably have, what is it, 3.1 or 3.2, something like that, per meter, feet per meter. So whatever that calculates out to. Now, what I did do when I set my loop up was to get an antenna analyzer, and I picked a particular frequency that I would like to work on, 20 meters, and tuned it so that it would be the smallest SWR to 1 that I could get, and set that up. And as it turns out, even the 80-meter loop is capable of loading on the 160-meter band, except that I can't really get it to work with the antenna tuner that I'm using anything below 1.9 megahertz. If I go to 1.85 or 8.89, something like that, it tends to increase the SWR. But for the most part, the highest SWR that I operate at is 1.4 to 1 on all the bands. In fact, on the 20-meter band, it's 1.0 to 1. So, the only difference I've noticed now with the interrupted loop that I have, and basically, my delta loop starts at 10 feet and moves up in one arm up to about 40 feet. In the other arm, it runs up to 100, it runs up to about 60 feet. And so the base runs from 60 feet down to 40 feet, and that's how it loops around. So it's a tilted delta loop. It's not horizontal or vertical, and it works out very, very nicely as an omnidirectional antenna. Wait one. The only problem that I've had is hearing stations down in the deep South Pacific, like in Indonesia. It's only when the band is just right that I'm able to copy them, and these are the times when I've heard stations in New York working in Indonesia, and I could barely hear them. And I did work once or twice a station in Indonesia when the band conditions were just perfect. But beyond that, it works out very nicely on all bands, and particularly as we're headed into a better propagation cycle right now, I think you'll be very pleased with whatever you arrange. And given the comparison right now between my loop when it's up in the air and the two arms that are down, one is wrapped around my pool enclosure at about, maybe 4 feet, something like that, and the other arm of it is wrapped around a tree at maybe 6 or 7 feet. It still works, and it works very nicely, except it's noisier than the loop. Back to you.
Well, that's encouraging, Jerry. And for TSC 3FZT, that's encouraging. I think a little more planned survey of the property, thinking about attachment and support points is all in my future during this month. If the world goes okay, the COVID world goes okay, I'm going to be a snowbird for a couple of months in Hawaii. We'll be back in March before the trees leave out, and that'll be a good time to get lines up and pulleys and support points. We'll give it a look. Thanks very much. I really appreciate your description of what you've done and what you've achieved with it. Very encouraging. 73, Jerry, all health and happiness in the week ahead. And thanks very much. This is Steve and Philadelphia, J3FZT. I'll be clear and listening on your fine.
Okay, very good, Steve. K3FZT and for TSC returning. Let me just tell you that if you can find support points multiple support points to get it to a circle, you'll approximate what the theoretical formation of a loop should be. But don't be discouraged if you can't find multiple support points. My 160 meter loop is actually, its takeoff is at exactly the same point at the northeast corner of my home as the 80 meter loop. And I use it in an area that is west of my home, the 160 meter loop. The 80 meter loop is east of my home. That is completely in the clear. However, the 160 meter loop, one arm of it actually has to move just above the roof of my home, maybe with about 3 feet of clearance over the roof and also over a garage. And it kind of folds back on itself. It has a takeoff angle first to the east, and then is held by the same support tree as the 80 meter loop, and it's folded back at a point maybe 30 feet above my home, and it goes into the west, and it circles around to complete the 160 meter loop. And I actually thought about trying to make something even larger, but the problems of it being close to other structures and over-the-air antennas have sort of made it difficult for me to make that choice. And I've talked to other guys about it, and they said, look, don't fight trying to get an extra 5 or 10% efficiency out of your antenna. Your antenna is doing just fine. And as it turns out, most of the time, I use the 80 meter loop rather than the 160. But I do comparisons from time to time, and I do hear maybe an S-unit difference between the two. I hope this information is helpful to you, but don't be afraid of trying anything you can. If you can get your loop up at support points at 20 feet or higher, you'll be fine. K3FZT and 4TSE.
Thanks for all that, Jerry. I do appreciate the encouragement, and perhaps if I go forward with this plan next spring, I'll have something to report back to you. Very fine. Take care. Have a great day and a great week ahead. This is K3FZT. I'm clear. Keyword.
Okay, very good, Steve, and enjoy your trip to Hawaii. And I hope you enjoy it, and that it turns out to be more than what you expect. And enjoy the holidays. K3FZT and 4TSE clear.